Isn't it working, Michael?
The guy the other day that lived over when he came to the, he could wait. And then set it down when he got beyond the driveway again, so
They recreate granite wall. But then you're driving.
Right, this is the one. Oh, manager. Hi, Diane. How are you?
Is that for Haley? I'll be bringing it up under committees. It's for the emergency manager for her vehicle.
Mr. Beach, are you with us?
I see her up there.
Yeah, I wondered. Commissioner Peach, are you there? Somewhere there.
So, see my back.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think she's muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can. We just wanted to make sure you're.
Okay. Yes, I'm here. Sorry it took me a little longer. I apologize.
No, it's all right. Thank you very much. Okay, the Grand Forks County Commission will come to order February 1st, 2022. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Pete during on a Zoom call. The first matter before the commission is the approval of the minutes. So moved. We have a motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Peach. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next is the approval of the order of the agenda. Is there any changes people want to make? We have a motion then?
I move approval.
Motion to approve the order of the agenda.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Knopf. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any commissioners that want anything pulled from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval
Thank you very
of the
much.
consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a
Second the motion.
second by Commissioner Knopf. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next is Grand Forks Juvenile and Jail Site visit. I don't know if we had.
No, there was a little confusion on that, Mr. Chairman, but I can give a quick rundown if you want on today's meeting, but there's no one here from it.
Okay, do we need a rundown? Or- All right, we don't. Yeah, we don't know if anything really new yet. So, all right, let's move on to public health.
Debbie's starting.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Debbie Swanson from the Health Department. I'm working remotely today, and I just wanted to ask your indulgence for a moment to give Teresa Knox an opportunity to speak. Teresa Knox is our nursing and nutrition manager, and she is retiring next month. And we have been so fortunate to have her leading our team, especially during the last couple of years during COVID. And I know she has some things to say to you. And so if it is okay with you, I'd like an opportunity for Teresa to address the commission, followed by Michael Dulitz, who will give the COVID-19 update. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And hello, and thank you, Chairman Falk and the county commissioners. As Debbie said, my name is Teresa Knox, and I'm the nursing supervisor at Grand Forks Public Health. And as you probably know, I am retiring soon. My last day in the office is February 11th. And I wanted to thank you, the Grand Forks County Commissioners, for your ongoing work, for all of the members of Grand Forks County. in our community. Your support of public health, our mitigation strategies, and the support of the ongoing work we do, especially in the last 2 years, has been very appreciated. Not all policymakers have made the difficult decisions in the ways you did, and it was and it still is appreciated by all of us who have been working on the front lines. I believe that we don't always say thank you, and you end up just hearing from those of us who have strong feelings against your decisions. So before I retire, I wanted to be sure and say thank you, not only for the last 2 years, but for the last 25. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So your going away party is the 8th?
Yes, you're all invited.
Sounds good. Thank you for everything that you've done for this part. And so appreciate all your help.
We worked together on many things over the years. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Chairman Falk, members of the commission, I'm Michael Lewis of Grand Forks Public Health here to give you a COVID-19 update. Next slide. So looking at the kind of week in review, we have peaked with our outbreak of the Omicron variant in Grand Forks County. And as of last week, our numbers are significantly down, so down by about 500 week over week. I want to reiterate that what we're seeing is a decline in cases. It's not a cliff. So there's still cases happening in the community. And we still have 237 reported yesterday. So we're seeing a decline, from the highest numbers that we've seen in the pandemic. So it's not over yet, but it's good that we aren't going up again. Next slide. So as you can see, we hit a peak about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and now that number is slowly declining. It's been declining at a relatively constant rate. Kind of the days that are the busier days, see proportionally less than the week before. So that makes up that steady decline. We did have some delayed testing, with some state lab challenges and some ultra-lab challenges. That delayed some tests over the weekend, so you may not have seen heavy numbers over the weekend, but those kind of caught up on on Monday. So numbers still pointing down though. Next slide. So what does this look like compared to our last our last kind of major outbreak, and the fall of 2021. So the numbers went up a lot faster, and they still haven't started that kind of steady decline that would kind of indicate that plateau. So we're still seeing the numbers increase. We still haven't quite bent that curve like we would see once the case rate starts to significantly decrease. The overall number of cases that we've seen in this outbreak just topped 6,000. The last outbreak it kind of petered off right around 7,000. So there's still a lot of cases happening in the community. Even if the the severity and stuff like that isn't the same. Next slide. So this one's kind of hard to see, but looking at where the cases are happening right now, kind of the spots that I would highlight are, there's still a fair number of cases happening in that 10 to 19 age group. The 20 to 29 age group, they make up a lot of cases because, again, as I've told you over and over again, they make up a large portion of our community. So that we're always going to see the most cases at, but they are the highest proportionally. So still a lot in that 30 to 60 age group, and the older age groups, are also of concern. We are seeing cases in that age group, and throughout the state, we're starting to see that the ages of the deaths that we're seeing kind of slowly skew up, or slowly start to turn upward again as COVID cases do start to hit nursing homes and things like that. That isn't something that we've seen here though, where we've seen a lot of COVID in nursing facilities. Next slide. What we're seeing right now does really match what we're seeing in other communities throughout the state, kind of our peer communities. So we all had kind of different peaks. Cass County had the highest peak. but we're all kind of following the same downward trajectory. When we look into the rural areas, they're seeing kind of peaks at different times than we are. So particularly the rural areas around, the rural counties around Grand Forks, they are all kind of piecemeal on where they're seeing, the case outbreak. So, having that, having the community and having, a lot of people around makes those cases spread a lot faster, obviously. Next slide. Looking over at hospitalizations. So, this one, this is always kind of a challenging one for us because we do see hospitalizations and it doesn't look, we convert these numbers out, it doesn't look like a lot, but it's still showing like it's having a big burden on the healthcare system. So, All True reports out to us how many people they have in the hospital each day. It was at about 9 on Christmas Day, and now it's up to about 24. It peaked at about 28 last week. Those are people in the hospital related to COVID-19. Yet in absolute numbers, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have, roughly 200 beds, that makes up a large portion of your overall number of people that you see in the hospital. So they're reporting out at Tier 2 orange, which means that that they have to limit their transfers in, and they're also facing staffing challenges, within their facility. So they're having to move people around to cover, from other areas to cover the staffing needs for the acute care side. So there's still impacts being seen, even though, proportionally we aren't seeing nearly the number of hospitalizations that we saw in the fall 2020 outbreak. Next slide. And then I just wanted to wrap up looking at the vaccination rates by age group. This is kind of a hard slide to see, but overall, both in North Dakota and in the country, there's been a really slow uptake in vaccination in the 5 to 11 age group, which is certainly concerning as policies get rolled back in a variety of settings such as schools. So where we're at right now is about 25% roughly in Grand Forks County, slightly behind Cass County, and certainly beating the western side of the state. We haven't seen as much movement overall in our vaccine numbers, which is also a little bit concerning that we're seeing that slow down without quite reaching where we want it to reach. And then I just wanted to add there is discussion still on a vaccine for the 6-month to 4-year age group, which would be very helpful for parents of kids of childbearing or parents of kids, because they're particularly daycare, because that's an area that we saw a big peak with Omicron that was going to have a big impact overall on the workforce. It's looking like there might be a potential for a vaccine in that age group in March. If they go with a 2-dose, there's a chance that could be pushed out if they decide they need more data to go with like a 3-dose series up front in that age group. And the next slide. So our bottom line, our case rates continue to decline from our peak, but they're still there. So we're still seeing a lot of cases in Grand Forks County, but they aren't going up. That average or that rate isn't going up. Our hospitalization does remain there. It's kind of a hard thing to quantify, but the impact is still being reported out by All True. And then looking at our threats, where you still see that low vaccination rate in younger age groups, and we still aren't quite past the thick of the Omicron outbreak yet. So there's still going to be cases getting reported out over the next few weeks before we get back to normal. But hopefully, again, this is more of a quick storm than something that is prolonged. With that, I am open to any questions.
Any questions?
There's a new variant out there now that's been identified. Is that in North Dakota as well?
We haven't been informed that of that variant being in North Dakota.
Okay.
I was just doing some reading right before I came up to do this report, and it's overall making up about 5% of the overall cases in the United States. It sounds like it's a little bit more transmissible than the Omicron variant, but there's a lot of crossover, in the immunity between Omicron and this new variant, which, the source that I was looking at, they were thinking that it probably isn't going to have as big of an impact as Omicron did. It just might increase that kind of that tailing off of cases. So, the good thing that we're seeing right now with Omicron and, with this new variant is it does seem to be something that's affecting the upper airway more than the lower airway. And that's why we aren't seeing things like major hospitalizations and stuff like that too. So that's another positive that we're seeing right now in how the virus is mutating. So fingers crossed that we aren't, that we aren't prolonging this anymore.
Mr. Higgins, did you have your hand up or
No, I just said good report to him.
anything from Commissioner Peach at all?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess you're.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Michael?
Mr. West?
Next meeting.
Give him a garage and he wants to draw.
Chairman Falk, members of the board. First off, I'd like to give a little shout out to Ms. Wanstead. We had our county roads conference out in Dickinson last week, and her department helped review our North Dakota county engineer and superintendent's handbook. So she helped coordinate. We had an extern through UMD Law and updated all the century code that pertains to it, some other items to the book, but it's one that's been outdated for quite some time, and we presented that to the whole group, more 200 people in the audience, and it was well received and appreciated. And she has a copy of it there if you'd like to see it. But yeah, so
Wow.
yeah.
Truthfully, our extern deserves all the credit.
Right. He did a lot of work.
It's the leadership. It's the leadership.
Yeah. But it was something extra that the department took on and didn't get extra compensation for as other duties as assigned, I guess, but we appreciate that. So I just wanted the board to know that. Yeah. And our department certainly having a much more challenging winter than last year, but so.
Job security.
Oh boy, yeah, they're starting to get a little tired, but yeah, it's been pretty good morale yet so far. It keeps going for a while. It might start wearing on them, but yeah. Trying to keep equipment going has been a huge item for us this year, but even sheds help. They do make a difference. Yes. First item on the agenda I have is a certification of local match for a bridge inspection. So what that is, the consultants were hired to inspect all of our bridges, and they're still working on it, but this is our first bill for the summer. Federal aid paid for 80% of it, we paid 20%. And with any federal aid project, we have to certify local match that our money's not coming from another federal aid source. So in this case, ours is coming from 2150, and that's where I hope that check would be written from. And I would ask for, they're asking for auditors and chairman's signature on the form.
I would make that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item is to request a couple RFP for engineering services. One is for our paving project this summer. This is one where our staff does not have the certification for federal aid paving job, and we would ask for some help there. However, our staff does get involved, so we don't have to hire it all out. We just need to hire the certified people. And our guys can take tickets, and our office technician can help run the job as well too. But we do need to issue an RFP, or what I would request an RFP for that one. That would go through the DOT process, and then we would need to have a selection committee and go through that all the steps. The other item is we did apply for that brick grant that was submitted mid-January for a new bridge on 62nd Avenue. That was submitted through Department of Emergency Services, FEMA. We will not find out if we get the grant until June, July. But my thought is, we issue an RFP now, get consultant on board. If we don't get the job, it will be in the advertisement. There is no project and it just goes away. If we do get the jobs, they're selected, they can hit the ground running, we can get environmental done this fall yet. Otherwise, you're waiting until next spring to do the field work and you waste the whole winter waiting. And so it doesn't put us at any risk. It just helps get the ball rolling. If we issue one RFP, it'd be nice to issue the two and go through the process all at once. Probably the same.
That's the one that goes over the bird condition, right?
Correct, between Lake Drive and East Lake Drive.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
You know, if they're talking about that group of people that live out there that would have maybe the extra assessment or the responsibility to pay a portion of it, if they're having any meetings or talking about this yet?
Officially, no.
Okay.
I have had discussions with the township and there are four residents out there that I know of or have had discussions with. They're aware of that. The township and myself, we didn't want to go out there and have big public meetings, get everybody worked up in case we don't get it. If we do get it, then we can go through the process at that time, and our consultant would help us with that process of establishing special assessment districts. And we have to create that policy, and our department's doing a little bit of work for us to do that, but possible. And this wasn't, she's looking at me like, oh boy, but we have not officially yet.
I'm sorry, when would you find out about the grant?
June, July. We have some time. So I would request issuing RFPs for these two projects. Would be my request.
I would second that motion.
We'll give you the second, Commissioner Peach. We need a motion from this group.
Oh, I would I can make the motion or I can second it.
All right, you make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
In the letter there, it says the county would have to form a selection interview committee that adheres to federal requirements. Is that later? If the grant is awarded, we have to do something about that now.
Well, for both projects, we would need to do that.
Right, but later?
Well, before we select. So if I issue the advertisement, we'll receive the RFPs, and then we'd have to form a selection committee at that time to review the RFPs.
I see. But
Yeah. So in the
you're
near
not going to
future,
include that in this motion today, do it.
I don't really see why. He's just gonna review them, so yeah.
This is a requirement.
Any further comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed.
thank you. Now comes some fun stuff. Since we have some funding, one project I'd like permission to bid is at the intersection of County Road 3 and Emery Street in Emerado. I had some photos attached here and some preliminary drawings we've been working with the water board on. There's culverts under Emery Street are in very poor shape, and they're in our right of way. There are culverts, and they're both, the culverts are way too short and in slopes are extremely steep. They're a long ongoing issue for us and a safety issue. We would have done something sooner, but this is immediately downstream of New Jersey 58. We wanted to make sure that was functioning and operational before we did this project, because that affects the hydraulics of the project and what size culverts we would put in. The other portion is last year we were short on cash, so it was postponed to this year. And we're estimating the project to cost about $350,000. And I would ask permission to advertise for bids.
I'd make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Ross and a second by Commissioner Knopf. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You may proceed on that, Mr. West.
Thank you. I should add the tidbit, I have a letter supporting the city from the mayor. It's been an ongoing issue. People drive through the curve and they'll slide off the road and go way down, and yeah, it's bad. My next item for consideration would be County Road 6 paving. What I'm proposing here is that County Road 6 from Kempton west, County Road 16, it's about a 9-mile stretch. We'd like to do a mill and overlay on it. In my original request, I did ask to change order onto our existing job. After further consideration and visiting with Bith Wamstead, we think that'd be a little bit of a stretch of what a change order should be. And with that, I would change that request to just give him permission to bid the project publicly as a new project. And I estimate the project to cost about 1.2 million at current pricing.
How's that one funded?
We would use our new, the $3 million we got from our ARPA funds through the state of North Dakota, House Bill 1505 million. Yes.
Move approval of that request.
Okay, motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You can proceed with that.
Thank you. If I may, could I add one item to the agenda?
As long as it's not controversial.
Oh, no, this is great.
Oh, we like great.
Yeah. So we got accepted for a grant for a bridge. It's also a House Bill 1505, but they had a grant application. I submitted 11 applications. Well, one stuck and we got it. So that's for a new bridge on County Road 5, south of Manville. We call it the Crooked Bridge. And kind of the low ones, it goes underwater a lot. So we got $1.25 million for that. I'm estimating the job to cost 1.6 million. So our county would have to kick in about 400,000. We have until December of 2025 to bid the job and until 2026 to spend the money. We have some time to figure out what to do with that. But what they're asking for right now is the email from the DOT is we need to know ACP if the county is willing to accept the funds and move forward with the project. So at this point, that would be my request. And I can come back later with maybe some other options or details, but at this point, I would just ask that we accept the funds and accept the project. If we say no, then they will just move down the list and we'll do that. Okay, so
I'll make the motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. Any further discussion on this matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
thank you. That is all I have. Any other questions?
That's it.
All great news today.
Yeah.
Next is the Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon, Dave Stromberg, appearing for Sheriff Schneider, who's Paul Palmer's place. Chairman Paul, members of the commission. I'm here requesting commission approval for a job description of an office support investigative analyst. We've worked with HR to provide an accurate description of the position, duties and responsibilities, training and experience that are currently being performed in our office by one individual. These duties and responsibilities have been actively performed in that position for nearly 3 years. Our office is looking to provide the correct classification for that position. And we are not looking to add any additional staff at this time. With the corrected classification, this position would move from a grade 6 up to a grade 8. That has been approved and reviewed by HR. On that note, we've included a employee status form for your review. The status adjustment would appropriately classify the employee in the correct position. After, again, speaking with HR, it was agreed upon a grade 8.4 as an appropriate level to start this position because it would be considered a promotion. The sheriff is also requesting that that would be effective today's date, February 1st. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I know Sadie, I know what she does. She used to be a deputy many years ago, and she's very good at what she does, very thorough, very investigative about everything she does. And I would make a motion to approve that job title and that pay grade increase effective today.
I'll second it.
Here we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
One question, anything from HR that we need to know?
Chairman Falk and Commissioner Engen. This was a project that's been going on for several months. There was a lot of work put in by Deputy Stromberg and Stromberg and Lloyd and Sheriff Schneider and myself. It is a unique position. It is different than other administrative support positions. And so I fully support the work that's been done. And I think that we put the position and the person who's currently in it on the proper spot on the scale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. The motion is passed.
I believe that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you very much.
See, Mr. Lloyd, it all went well today.
Did, thanks. He was my backup.
You didn't even have to talk.
Years ago in investigations, Mr. Lloyd would always tell me when it looked the darkest that things were going to go either good or well for me. I didn't know if he was always sincere or not, but yeah. Okay. So that takes us to finance and tax.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I have a budget to actual report 2021 in front of you. These are all the departments in the general fund. The human service zone cost was over because of the liability insurance was not budgeted for in 2021. We have now included at $12,000 for 2022. Also, there was some chairs that were purchased in 2021. And also, they redid their copiers. That caused it to be a little bit higher. We received $585,000 from the state for indirect costs in 2021. The last time we charged rent for them in 2019 was $370,000. So the difference would be $215,000. So we made 215, although we did spend the 115 or 13,000 in indirect costs. So we're still ahead of the game, but we do need to talk about the indirect costs that at the next legislative session, because the amount we received from the state will not be increasing as the law changes. The county fair, we send out the amount that is paid. You see that 95.27% is what we collected, and so that's what we sent out. The insurance reserve was over budget by 87,000, but we increased the value of our property. So that's part of it. We also increased our budget in 2022 by 40,000 to 180,000. So we'll probably still be short next year. Advertising was under $2,800. The correctional center was under by 734,000. 58% of that was from salaries and benefits. They were also under in their medical and janitorial supplies and their food service. And back in October, you guys had approved a new commercial dryer. And you recall that was October what? October 19th. So that dryer and then some mobile radios. So they didn't get those in 2021. He was going to use the money that he had extra in his budget last year. Well, he won't have that this year. So we need a budget amendment. He paid for some of it. So another $106,000. So we have a motion to amend his 2022 budget by $106,000 for what was approved in 2021, but not paid for in 2021. That'd be great. So I'm seeking a motion to amend the correctional center budget by $106,000 for what was approved in 2021 and not paid for yet.
Okay. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. Do we have a second, Commissioner Knopf?
Yeah.
If we have a second, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, so Albert, the commissioners, they were both only spent 65% of their travel budget, so they were under almost $5,800. Human resources was under $32,000, but 25 of that was for professional services, which we have moved to 2022. The director of administration underspent the base retention by $9,300 and Grand Sky admin fees by about $4,000. So was only almost $14,000 under. The district court, the guardian ad litem was under $15,000. That's something I have no idea what's going to occur year to year. The sexually dangerous underspent are only spent about $3,400 of their budgeted $20,000. There again, just don't know from year to year what your expenses are going to be. The finance and tax department was under $68,000. We were not fully staffed for the full year in 2021. The state's attorney was under $128,000, and 98% of that was from salaries and benefits. Victim witness fees, the amount that we collect there goes directly to CVIC according to law. The county recorder was under $5,300. The only thing that is paid out of that is their salary and benefits. So everything else comes out of their tech fund. The superintendent of schools was under by $1,285. Tax equalization office was under almost $27,000. $10,300 from consulting fees and $9,300 from health insurance. The computer budget was under $36,000. $20,000 was from network security, $7,100 from software programming, and $3,000 from travel. Employee benefits was over by about $1,000, and we need to budget for the TIC. What does TSC stand for again?
The insurance center.
The insurance center. We don't know the budget. We'll get that in there for 2023 anyway. Buildings and grounds was under by $22,700, and that was in service, mostly in service agreements. Elections was under $119,000. It's a non-election year. Budget board elections. At the next meeting, I'm going to talk to you guys about polling places and where we going to have those polling places. I'm thinking about having possibly 3 voting centers in Grand Forks County. And you can go to any one of those. And basically, the reason I'm gonna bring that at the next meeting is because the Alair Center doesn't have a space large enough to handle everybody. So I'm thinking I need to have a couple more spots. But we'll talk about that next meeting. PSAP is paid quarterly. The county memberships, the North Dakota Association of Counties membership was $3,600 less than budgeted. Contracted services, it was over about 12,500. We did not budget for safety for kids. And Lutheran Social Services, we know what happened there. So we didn't use all the funds that we had budgeted for that. The utilities was 13,000 over. The utilities increased, or the electricity increased. The conference rooms, $2,600 under. Capital improvements, and we talked about this earlier, that we were about $710,000 less than we had budgeted in that account, and that's because we took the chiller, the $500,000 in the chiller, and we are going to use ARPA funds for that. And then the items that we approved in 2021 that did not get paid in 2021, such as the carpet cleaners, the parking ramp study, and the pod access were not paid for in 2021. The sheriff was over about $287,000, but that's offset by $384,000 in offsetting non-budgeted revenue. The juvenile detention center was under about $18,500. The mental health hearings under about $20,700. $15,000 of that was from patient care and $5,700 from legal fees. The county coroner was over $2,200. They had we bought 2 vehicles for them, and then she had added some additional equipment to those vehicles that was not included in the original budget. The emergency manager was under $2,400. Planning and zoning, $18,000 under. $10,000 from code enforcement and $17,500 from board per diem. And almost $3,000 in miscellaneous. The overall, the general fund underspent by $1.5 million. Other items, special revenue items, we got the road funds, which includes both the road and bridge and the highway. Revenues were over and expenditures were under. The cash balance of $2,140 was $982,000, and $2,150 it was $1.7 million at the end of the year. In capital construction, we had 2 projects in capital construction, and one is the correctional center, which will be paid off in December 2025. And then the courthouse remodel project, which was approved by vote, will be paid off in May of 2022. But we did not levy for that in 2021, and we have the money set aside to pay off those bonds as they come due. So we will no longer levy for those. The weed control and all the other remaining funds or agency funds, we levy for them and disperse what is received by the 10th day of the following month. I have a list of what was approved by the American Rescue Plan funds. And just so you know, we also have the CARES fund. We received $2.2 million in CARES funds, was based on our licensed law enforcement payroll costs from March through December in 2020. We have used about $600,000 of that fund. We have $1.6 million remaining. And the CARES funds can be used for any purpose as long as, and this is what the state has said, as we reduce the tax burden on taxpayers. And then the American Rescue Plan, we received in June 2021, the first installment. We will receive our second installment in this year, probably in June again, bringing us to $13,490,000. I do have a list on the screen there showing what's been approved so far and how we, how the commission decided to use those funds. And we received the money in June 2021. We could use ARPA funds for qualified expenses going back to March 3rd, 2021. So we got it in June 2021, but we could go back to March 3rd, 2021 for qualified expenditures, and we could go back for premium paid to January 27th, I believe, 2021. We moved all the expenses that we had in 2010 and 2561 that would have qualified. Anything that was a qualified ARPA expense, we moved over there. The final rule released has one big change from the interim rule. That is that it allows you to either calculate your revenue loss like we did in the past, like I said we had to, using that calculator, or we can use a flat $10 million for any government service. So that was a big change. So instead of using, then I had to file our first compliance report that was due January 31st. I did it on January 25th. And at that time, it asked you to make a selection. You want to use the calculator, and that was $772,000, or do you want to use a flat 10 million? I said the flat 10 million. So that's how we can use those funds. And so you can see that we have used about $8 million, including the $1 million for the correctional center infirmary. And so you have another $5.5 million that after we receive the funds, you can decide how you want to use those dollars. And you must obligate those funds by December 31st, 2024.
Sorry, when did you say we're gonna get this money?
June, probably. They said a year after we got the first installment, we should get the second installment.
So those that have requested ARPA money, or we just kind of put up the deal with those in.
However you would wish to do it. Have we put together that same list, or?
There's still some requests that weren't funded from the first pot.
Right, and I've got those in like the CDIC, we were looking at maybe doing another 200,000.
The upside for us is that we can somehow maintain some sense of financial responsibility here. We could set aside quite a bit of money for the correctional center, which is going to be problematic. We don't know down the road that we set it at 30 million. I don't know that they're going to get a whole lot in corrections after we take care of the first 10 million out of the 30 goes to various outsourced construction, but 20 million if we put into juvenile detention and corrections, we're going to have to add some money. So that would help us dramatically. So,
yeah.
Excuse me. But it's good.
So that's it.
Any questions, Ms. Nelson? So it's a good thing we have about $1.5 billion extra.
Yes.
I do have a question. We have 2 million in capital improvements, but that doesn't count this 1.5 at all. That's not, you didn't put part of that in there too. But can't spend what?
1.5 million.
No, I'm not saying we do that. I just wanted to make sure that
It's not.
I want to know where our money is. Okay, that's good. Always limitation bonus. Okay, lost my sheet here. Directive or administration.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I just have one quick request, nothing too controversial. I had purchased an iPad and a Bluetooth keyboard to go with it for remote working and travel, so that you guys can keep tabs on me when I'm off and about. I was gonna use my miscellaneous budget, but I ran past Ms. Nelson. One of the primary uses is remote working. If we could use CARES Act to cut my budget a break, she reminded me we're using ARPA. So I've just a request to the commission, if instead of using my miscellaneous budget, if I could pay it using ARPA funds, it could fall under 1.7, which is essentially changed to capital improvements, remote working, things like that. And Ms. Nelson, I even circled 7.1, which is administrative expenses. I don't know if that, it was just something I noticed. Yeah, the total amount was $1,296.98 that I would request from ARPA. Like I said, I'd originally intended to just take it out of my miscellaneous budget, which is what I typically use for things like that, but thought I'd see if the commission would be willing to cover it under ARPA instead. So that's my request to the board.
I'm making a motion to approve that.
Correctional center will have to be just $1,000 some dollars smaller. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
She got her hand raised first.
Oh, wait.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Nelson has a question here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, our commission, Mr. Board, should we call it congregate settings? Because I think all our remote, all our Zoom, that's where we.
Yes, it is.
That.
You're correct.
Expense category.
One,
And I can't remember what that number is.
that's 1.7.
No,
No,
it is not.
it is not. You're right. It's 1.4.
You have 1.4.
Hey, does this change our motion at all? Or
No, but
It
I'd
doesn't.
like to include 1.4 instead of 1.7.
all right, you can do that. Okay, we have
We have a motion and a second.
a motion and a second.
Who seconded the motion?
I think I did.
Okay.
No, we don't. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion approved.
Mr. Chair, if we come up short $1,200 in the June out of 10 project, we'll take it out. of my- Thank you. That's all I have.
Do we want to talk about your carpet?
Yes, sir.
I'll be the one I pressed Mr. on this, but you go ahead.
Oh, you might have noticed the outer office looks different in the commissioner's suite. So hopefully was looking at an install of the new conference room furniture this week. However, it's empty. So if there was ever a good chance to replace the carpet in that area now, it could be now. And so I visited with Mr. Falk about that, Chairman Falk, excuse me. So it's an option if the timing could be good. And if the commission wants to go that route, I could just give a couple carpet places phone calls to get an estimate.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I pressed Mr. Ford on this. Initially, he wasn't going to do that, but when we've got all that furniture pulled out of there, it's time. The carpet's 24 years old, and the stuff actually in your office is worse than out for the commissioners. There's terror, there's a steam that's coming apart, but I just don't see any reason for us to spend money to haul all that furniture out 3 years from now and replace that carpet. So you can get a motion to approve getting a bid and applying that to the capital improvement project to be approved here today.
I would make that motion.
I would second.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It's passed. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you.
And we're down to Ms. Wamstead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. First on the 6:30 agenda is the American Rescue Plan Act sub-recipient agreements. As you're aware, the ARPA funds are much more restricted in how we can utilize them. And if they're not utilized properly according to the guidance provided by the federal government, we run the risk of having to return those funds. So Mr. Ford, Ms. Nelson, and I have worked together to draft some subrecipient agreements for those outside entities that are receiving a portion of the county's ARPA funds. There are 7 separate agreements. Ms. Nelson and I felt it would be probably easiest to address each one in turn. The first one is for the Grand Forks Foundation for Education. This is the funds allocated to the Career Technical Academy or whatever it was called. The funds will be funneled to the Grand Forks Education Association and then they'd be utilized for that specific project. For this allocation, this comes out of the funds that the county hasn't yet received. So this agreement is a little bit different than the others in the sense that it's contingent on the county receiving that second allocation of funds, and then they wouldn't receive the funds until a later date after the commission or the county receives those funds. So I would ask for a motion to approve the agreement with the Grand Forks Foundation for Education.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Knopf. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
I just asked a question. I wasn't thinking fast enough. So does it, the document, we haven't received the money. It's contingent upon, so does it, do we need any verbiage in here about the contingency or not?
Commissioner Knopf, there is verbiage in here about the contingency. If you give me a minute. Under paragraph 5, the last sentence provides all payments from the county to the recipient are contingent on the availability of the funds to the county and then subject to the applicable laws regarding the funds from ARPA. Additionally, all of these contracts per ARPA require the recipients to invoice the county and provide specific details on the use of these funds, so that we have supporting documentation that they were used by the recipient in accordance with the ARPA guidelines. So the second agreement in the commissioner's packet is an agreement between the county and Grand Forks City. This is the agreement in which the city was requesting funds for the wastewater infrastructure facility. This agreement will need to be amended because there was at least one contingency that the board approved. Commissioner Knopf pointed out that it was contingent on the retention, the city's retention of the food bank project, and that was not included in this agreement. So I would ask for a motion to approve a corrected agreement as soon as we can prepare that. Ms. Nelson is going to review the minutes to see if there were any other contingencies that we should include in the agreement as well as that.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. Any further discussion on the city wastewater? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Is that for my signature then?
What was that?
I'll have to sign it before she gets put together.
That should be in the motion.
So long as it's approved.
It's approved, I can sign it. Okay,
The third agreement before the board is the CVIC agreement. This one's pretty straightforward. It's for the amount of $300,000. One thing I would note is the board previously discussed perhaps CVIC may be eligible for more funds if the board decided to allocate them to CVIC. This would not prevent the board from allocating again in the future. We'd probably just want to do a second contract for the specific purpose that they were allocated. So I would ask for a motion to approve the CVIC contract.
by Commissioner Engen, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next few we can take pretty quickly because they're likewise straightforward. The next one is the Ultra Health Foundation agreement. This was for the $600,000 that was allocated to the Ultra emergency room. The contingency included in this one was that it needs for emergency room services in their reconstruction. And so that contingency is included in paragraph number 3. So I would ask for a motion to approve this agreement.
I would move approval on that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next agreement is with the Northwood Deaconess Health Center. This one is likewise pretty straightforward. It's for the amount of $330,000 to their renovation or addition project that they requested. So I'd ask for a motion to approve this contract as well.
I move approval of that one.
Motion by Mr. Engen, who's from Northwood. Second, anybody for a second?
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Okay, we have a second and a comment.
Comment is, was it 449,000 that they asked for, or wasn't it a considerably higher number? And so shouldn't it reflect that? Because their ask was more than 400. They asked for $1,449,000, if I remember correctly. And so just to be consistent with all the others that we're signing here, we've put in the full ask. And then we've stated on the second page what we stated.
We can add this.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Beach.
I think I can answer that one. Diane, I believe that group was doing 2 different projects. They were doing a whole redo project at the Northwood facility, and then they did not own their clinic in Larimore. And I believe the funding that we put forward for Northwood Deaconess was so that they could buy the facility in Larimore and finish or do what they needed to do, I believe, to expand the entry and make it a bigger lobby area. With the funding, we didn't fully fund that project.
Yeah, and thank you, and I remember that, but it was the figure that I thought was off, that was the wrong figure.
And it was,
Because it was only like, I'd have to look at my sheets here, but it was, I remember what you're saying, and I remember that there were two and that we only did the one, but it was, when I looked at it just now again, I was thinking that 449,000 was a wrong figure.
So, Commissioner Knopf, members of the commission, I'm looking at a letter from Northwood Deaconess that was sent to Mr. Ford on October 8th. It looks like they made a request for a number of different purposes, I guess. Specifically, their request to Northwood Deaconess in this letter is $449,000. With that said, they had a number of different requests that they made in the same letter, if that makes sense.
And we only funded the Northwest Deaconess project.
Correct.
For 330,000.
Correct.
I think they kind of.
That 449,000, I have to look at this thing here, but I was thinking that was speaking to funding that they received, because I think on that document it said the funding that they got from Northwood, the funding that they got from Grand Forks County. Let me just look here for a minute.
Their letter reads, the scope of this work would basically double the space while improving safety and access for patients and staff. With new equipment, the project costs include the following. And then it goes on to list $165,000 for purchase of property, renovation, $1,284,000 for a total cost of $1,449,000. Funding source outline, and then they go through and list Grand Forks County, Larimore Star Fund request, Red River Regional request, and Northwood Deaconess, and that's the 449. I can certainly amend this contract if I think so everyone is aware, the portion that Commissioner Knopf is referring to is about halfway down on the first page. After the whereas, it lists their request of $449,000.
But their request, am I all wrong? Was there a request from us 725,000?
They list in
According to
funding
this
outline, Grand Forks County request 725, Larimore Star 150, Red River Regional 125, Northwood Deaconess 449.
Well, I think this covers the Northwood Deaconess is where we sent the money or we agreed, so.
That was the purpose for these
correct.
funds, that's correct.
Hey, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, they wanted to put in some new COVID testing equipment into the hospital. They wanted to put in essentially, as they refer to it, as a clean room in the Northwood Hospital. And then they wanted to purchase their Larimore facility and do extensive renovations. So yes, it was a number of different projects into a cumulative total.
But, and I don't know if they told us in the meeting or they told us before, but I knew that the Northwood project was their priority project.
When I visited with the Northwood Deaconess leadership, their priority was the Larimore facility.
Oh.
Purchasing the Larimore property and then conducting renovations.
And the way I read this, it was the total cost, purchase of property, renovation in addition, so that's the two projects that they had. And so that total $1,449,000. Okay, and so then below that, it says the funding source outline, which I'm reading that to mean these are the people that they've gone to for funding. And of which we were one of those of the four. And so it's Grand Forks County request 725, Larimore Star Fund request 150, Red River Regional request 125, and Northwood Deaconess, 449,000. So to me, it was like they were going to Northwood Deaconess to also ask for funding. And so that-
Northwood Deaconess is the one who put the application in. So they're taking money from their administration or whatever their resources are for that dollar amount.
right. And so it's coming from them, but if you add those four up, then that comes to 1,449,000. So that equals the funding that they're requesting from us and themselves and Larimore and Red River Regional equal the total costs of their ask. And so to me, it doesn't reflect that in the document, but whatever. If you guys,
But when we went through that entire list, we didn't fully fund their ask. I do remember that.
but I'm not, apparently not saying the right thing, but you know,
I can amend it for the chair's signature to change the provision halfway down on the first page, stating their request was for $725,000. I don't think that changes the substance of the agreement, but if that seems
it
more.
doesn't change anything other than I just thought it would be nice to have the right figures in there so that if we ever have to look back at this at another time, it makes sense. And it's consistent then with all of the verbiage that we've used on the others. And so, you know, I mean, I'm okay with it. I just, we approved 330,000, and so that figure is proper. So I mean, maybe that's all we need. I just wanted the consistency with correct numbers.
No. For a while, I thought it really didn't matter, but now I'm looking at All Truth where we have that they requested up to $5 million. So, you know, I think we should maybe, yes.
I was wondering if there was a difference between the ask on October 1st and the ask on October 8th. They lowered their ask.
They did.
The letter I saw said they wanted, there was 3 asks. There was a 5 million, there was a 3 million, and there was a 1 million.
That's all true.
No,
Debbie's talking-
no, it says right in here, October 1st and October 8th. So I'm just wondering, were they the same ask on the same letters or increase?
Are you talking All Truth? Or no?
I'm talking Northwood,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because
that's
I've
right.
got in front of me Northwood's contract. And in here, we have 2 dates, October 1st and October 8th. I'm just curious if those letters were the exact same, their requests.
Mr. Board.
So Northwood Deaconess Healthcare Center did reduce their ask.
That's what I thought.
They did. They had removed, it was this type of COVID testing that they had asked for. And they removed that because they got the funding from somewhere else. So I do remember they changed their ask. I don't remember all the specifics, but that one stands out in my mind is they removed that specific on the request for the COVID testing. All True requested 3 funding levels, 5 million, 3 million, 1 million, and the commission went with 6,000.
So I do have both letters that were provided for me to read. The October 1st letter is a little more ambiguous. It basically says, NDHC would request as much support as possible for the remodeling and if allowable, the purchase of the location. If you're looking for a more specific number, we can provide that amount. We are awaiting more specific pricing and could get that to you within a month. And that's when I think they followed up with the October 8th letter, which is more specific on the
And
cost.
that's the one I have, and that's the one I was going by, so that's why I'm gonna all these stupid thoughts.
Okay, so are we good to go then?
Has the board already approved this one? I can't
We have a motion and a second.
We have to
can
go.
have a vote.
We could correct that amount to Commissioner Knopf want the 725,000, I could change that for the chair's signature.
So you could take it up with as amended.
I'll amend the motion to include first correction.
Who seconded that one?
No.
I
No.
did,
Okay.
and I would agree with that motion.
Okay. Do you agree with it also, Commissioner? Knopf?
She said you seconded.
I have you
Yes, I
Yes, yes, sorry.
I did second it, but I said I had a question, so there.
You're in agreement.
So you're
You're in
I'm
agreement.
in agreement with the amendment. Yep.
There we go.
Let me get through this. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes on that one.
Thank you. The next agreement is for the Red River Children's Advocacy Center. This is for the amount allocated to their organization in the amount of $40,000. Otherwise, it's the same as the other agreements.
I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion.
We have a second. Any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
And the last agreement before the board is the Spectra Health Agreement. I would note there were some corrections that were identified after the packet went out. So Ms. Nelson has a corrected version for the chair's signature. Essentially, it corrects the amount that was allocated to their organization, as well as under paragraph 12, the contact person. So I would ask for a motion to approve the agreement with Spectra Health that Ms. Nelson.
What is the amended amount?
50,000. It was 600,000. Scanned
It's
in.
just cut and paste from Ultras.
Okay, but on, I think Commissioner
Oh.
Knopf brought that, that's,
Oh, on the first page,
Spec-
it's 70.
okay,
It, what they received from the county is 50, or will receive
that's what we agreed to is 50.
50.
Okay, we had that clarified.
I just comment.
Yeah.
But on the second page where it says this agreement shall not exceed 600,000, will that be also?
Look at the screen.
Oh, this is the, okay, I
That's
have
the new
old
one.
and this
That's
is
the
the
old
new
one,
one, so
and
we're good to
The
go.
new one is here for the chair to sign.
Okay.
Okay,
Copy and paste issue.
we have a motion and a second, I think.
I made a
No.
mo-
No?
We have
Okay,
nothing.
I made a motion to.
thank you. We have a second.
All right.
We have a second from Commissioner Reagan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one's opposed, it's passed.
That's all for the ARPA subrecipient agreements that I have. The next item on the agenda is the rural school nurse contracts. There are 3 contracts for the board's review today, 2 of which are for rural schools in the amount of $43,680. One specifically to the Thompson Public School District, the other to Northwood. The third agreement is with the city of Grand Forks. And this is not allocating any additional funds to the city of Grand Forks, which Ms. Swanson is here. She can explain how public health is providing school health services for some other school districts under this agreement. It's for previously allocated funds to the city in the amount of $178,480. The guidance from the federal government previously was that this money had to be spent by December 31st of 2021. It was not all spent by that date. The federal government then extended the deadline for the expenditures of previously allocated funds such as this. which allows it to be extended through September 30th of 2022. And so this agreement just outlines that you had previously allocated these funds to the city. They were unspent by the December 31st deadline, and it's extending that deadline to September 30th of 2022 as the federal guidance allows.
Move to these contracts by one motion.
I think that would be acceptable.
I move approval of these three contracts.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Second. Thompson, Northwood, and the city of Grand Forks on nursing services. Any further discussion on those? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I will, I know we had talked about this before. I will deliver the ones for Northwood Deaconess, Spectra Health, and All True Health to go over those agreements with them.
Great. Okay. Or Ms. Wamstead.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Committee reports. Well, let's start with Commissioner Peach.
The only thing I have to report is hopefully you saw the announcement by our executive director at the airport that the Grand Forks Airport was rated 12th in the country for landings and takeoffs in 2021. That was pretty exciting. I know there is a listing of airports that Grand Forks was higher than JFK. I believe it was Philadelphia, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Memphis, a few other airports that they had done more takeoffs and landings than. And so I think that's really extraordinary that the Grand Forks Airport is able to handle all of those planes coming and going. The university did report at the last board meeting that they are going to be redoing their building at the airport. I believe it's going to be a $30+ million project. The runway projects are coming along very well, and they have seen the Allegiant Air project. The Allegiant Air has come back, and I believe they have already added 5 or 6 planes for the flight in next October for the UND hockey game that will be held in Las Vegas. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Knopf.
Quiet times for Commissioner Mark anyhow, but library meeting on the 19th, all is well there. And the only other thing that I participated in or attended was the home rule meeting on the 24th. So, and that was just to observe. That's all I have.
Commissioner Egan.
Well, earlier today, we had a Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee meeting. And I think the commission needs to approve the decisions we came up with today, and we were all at that meeting. So I'll make a motion, and I would ask Chairman Falk to watch your notes because he took good notes of this. Make sure I get it right, and Ms. Nelson as well. But the approvals, we put off some of the requests because we're just being prudent with the funds we have, and we may be able to make many more of these in the next several months or by summer. But I think the ones that I saw that I marked down that we recommend approval of is the Highway Department Inkster Shed approval, which is estimated at $75,000. The Building and Grounds exterior LED lighting for approximately $20,000. The correctional center intercom replacement for approximately $210,000. And the sheriff's department renovation of the training room in the water storage building and lighting in the storage building. So that totals 430-some thousand, but then we have the other prior approvals that we haven't spent yet, that brings it up to 600,000 or more that will come out of the budget or out of the capital improvements. Did I miss some?
Yeah, there's three others, and they're all related to county office building. The county office
yeah.
building, second floor paint and carpet, first floor bathroom remodel, and second floor bathroom remodel. Which
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna
have them on my notes and I couldn't read it. There you go. So we'll add those, but
And then, did we, Mr. Ford's area there, are we putting that in here? The carpet?
Maybe.
You
Just-
already made the motion.
Sure, take care.
That's-
All right,
yeah.
all right.
yeah, that's a second.
Yeah, okay. I think you have them all.
Okay. And will we approve that the commission approve those?
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the capital improvements projects. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The capital improvement projects are approved to go forward. Anything else, Mr. Ingram?
Oh, yes, we got EDC forum on Thursday morning, and we've been going to full-fledged meetings for a long time. This one's gonna be virtual because of what's going on in the county. The other thing is that Commissioner Knopf has just termed out with 2 terms on the NDSU extension, and he was kind enough to bring me over there to meet those people today. And I'm afraid I've got a hard act to follow because they love her over there. But it's really a good group of people. They do a lot of things, and it was very helpful that you brought me over there. I appreciate that.
Mr. Ross?
We had a meeting last week, MPO. We approved the report, final report of the ad hoc committee on the bridge. Talking about Elks Drive, 32nd Avenue, or no bridge at all. So we just approved that report, and now the 2 city councils, East Grand Forks and Grand Forks, have to get together and talk about this a little more. The other thing that came up was the fact that there's still a group of people that are interested in the Roland Young Memorial Bridge, AKA Muirfield Bridge. So they're trying to get a meeting together, the Chamber of Commerce, and I think Nick got notified about it too. Still trying to get money to work on that project. And Earl Haugen is retiring, so they're looking for a new director for the NPO. The other thing that I have, and it's not my committee, it's Commissioner Knopf's, but I always stick my nose in stuff all the time. Anyway, the equipment for Kari's emergency management vehicle. The other equipment she had was stuff that I gave her when I was sheriff. It's totally obsolete, it won't work. So I've got a list of items here that she has talked with Stone's Mobile Radio about. And it comes to the amount of $16,982 and 86 cents. And I have talked to Ms. Nelson, the auditor, and Commissioner Falk about maybe using ARPA money for this. And they said that it complies with it. So I guess I'm asking for this money for her equipment so we can move on.
You're making a motion to approve the $16,982.86. It's
From ARPA funds.
the emergency vehicle from our funds. Okay. Do we have a second? Go ahead.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that motion.
I think Commissioner Ross got in first, so we'll give him the second.
Oh, no problem.
Dan's up in the air.
To
Go ahead.
take that out of ARPA funds.
Ms. Nelson.
1.7 is your category. Include that in the motion.
Okay.
1.7 is category.
1.7 the category.
Yeah,
All right.
1.7 in the category.
I'm in
It's your
agree-
motion.
I'm in agreement with adding that to the motion.
Good.
We're gonna get through this, I think. Who's, okay, we got a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is that pickup she's driving?
What? So that's the expedition.
Oh,
She getting a brand new expedition.
cargo box inside the expedition.
Oh, yeah, it's carry all our equipment. in.
Oh, yeah,
It's
okay.
made just for the expedition.
Okay, I thought, okay, never mind.
Can I just ask Bob a question on
Sure.
what's the final, where's the bridge? I mean, are we still at two options?
Yes, 2 options or no bridge at all. Those are the 3
Three
options
options, because last I
That's
heard it
what the
was
ad hoc
37.
committee presented.
Plus the Merrifield one.
Well, yeah, the Mayorfield, that's a different animal.
So, and when's that final decision gonna be made?
When those councils get together and figure something out.
So that could be a while.
Are you applying for that chairmanship? Will become?
Dude,
Anything else?
no, sir.
Okay. I have just a couple of things, really just informational. The Home Rule Committee met. We're gonna meet again next week. Everybody's kind of doing homework, going over it. I asked, I think Michelle and Debbie are looking at some things on there. Haley's doing work on it. So maybe in a couple, 3 weeks or something, we'll have some ideas for you. Everybody on the committee's really pretty good. They've got ideas, and so I'm pretty positive. And the other really wasn't a committee meeting, but I introduced Mr. Swire at our Lions Club that Commissioner Knopf and I belong to. I don't know if you happen to sit in.
No, I didn't.
So I was online and Commissioner Swire, they got excited and sent me a text at like 7:05 saying, Mr. Swire is not here. He's on Texas time, the whole radio show. And of course, he did about 7:10. So it was a very nice presentation that Mr. Swire made. And he, some of you may have heard this or whatever, but indicated that most, if not all, of the Global Hawks will eventually be refitted over at Northrop Grumman and here in Grand Forks. So with a new mission at the base and those going to, we're a winner on this deal. His comment was is that I think between that project and various other projects that are possible out at Grand Sky, that he's hopeful for about 100 new jobs out there, which would be wonderful and those are great jobs. And he was very well received. They had some good questions, and Tom was usually did a very nice job. Very much a credit for us. So
Yeah.
That's all I've got. So we're now unfinished new business planning and zoning board appointment.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we have 2 openings on the planning and zoning board. Joel Larson reapplied to serve and Paul Erickson does not want to be reappointed, but we do have somebody else that would be interested. So I need a motion to appoint Joel Larson and Matt Fisher to the planning and zoning board.
Good question. With the new person coming on, with the planning and zoning board, have they made a
Recommendation.
trusted opinion? Are they recommending it?
I did talk to Lane Navison and they have no issues. And they are happy just to have 2 people interested.
Yeah, we've been scraping to find. I think Mr. Ford found Mr. Fisher for him. He knew him, and Mr. Larson actually, we appointed him about 3 months prior to the end of last year, and he didn't realize that he was taking a seat.
Oh, sure.
He just thought he was in for 2 years or whatever, so he's reapplied. So he'll be fine. So I think we need to approve both of these, and that's the best it's gonna
I
get.
would make a motion to approve both those gentlemen.
Mr. Larson and Mr.
Fisher.
Fisher,
Yep.
planning and zoning. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Peach. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence.
Wait at me.
Yeah.
Correspondence. Well, there should be, we received 2 letters of notification from the city of Grand Forks about some pilot program participation beyond 5 years. One is for Fufeng, so the corn milling project. They're going to be asking for a 20-year pilot exemption. And then the other one is the All of Ann Convention Center downtown. Is going to be asking for a beyond 5-year exemption as well. That has to go before both the county commission for review and approval, and it has to go before the school board as well. So I believe city leadership will be coming to the commission at the next February meeting to ask for the county's participation in both of those. You'll notice in the letters, they set the public comment date for the city council. And then the final letter under correspondence is I believe, and she is an inmate at the correctional facility. She's asking the commission to reconsider installing the work release program. So, you know, the commission had decided to discontinue that a few years ago due to various reasons, but she's asking you to reconsider that and reinstitute.
Kind of wondering if that isn't why a defense attorney who I know very well called and asked about why we're not having that also. And I explained to him that it wasn't cost effective, we didn't have the space, and that most of these people really should be able to qualify under electronic home monitoring ankle bracelets. And I'm not sure why this lady isn't. But we have no ability to reinstate that program right now. And apparently from our man from Texas, that most places don't have that anymore anyway. So my question would be, is maybe we could find out why if she can be on electronic home monitoring. I don't know. Do you even know who she is?
I can check with the correctional center and let you know.
Okay, and find out, but and maybe advise Mr. Burkholder to advise this lady that we don't have that program, nor can he get it back right now.
I think those are the only items under the correspondence was those 3.
Let me ask you, Ms. Wong said that we're still using electronic home monitoring, are we, or?
Yes, Commissioner Falk, members of the commission. All defendants are eligible for the electronic home monitoring program if the judgment is silent. The judges have to specifically state that they not be considered for that program if they wish. And then if the judgment is silent, the correctional center has kind of a risk assessment that they do to decide who actually would get to participate in that program.
Okay. Well, maybe she needs to apply. So, all right, that's enough of that.
Can I make a comment in reference to the city coming forward on the tax increment financing?
Right, sure.
And all I want to say is I would strongly encourage the commissioners to go online and watch the council meeting from last night. It's lengthy. There's a lot of good information there that I think we need to know. And that's all I'll say about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, and the thing is, there was a lot of good information that was given. in a lot of areas that no decision's been made yet, and that's understandable, and so I'm not being critical there. But there was a lot of public comment, and I think that that's important for us to hear. It's, the public has not had an opportunity to make a lot of comment or be involved. And I think it's important that they do. And, but I would strongly encourage you to have a cocktail and watch the, you know, but like I say, it's lengthy. But it's good. It's good information on both sides.
There's some misinformation too. But
There's misinformation as well, but, you know, I just think it's important. I know leave it at that.
There will be public hearings, so correct, on these two?
There will be public hearings and they are scheduled.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that people haven't been included that are affected by this. You know, I mean, you got all the people from Faulkner County, you got other people that live
Township,
along
you mean?
81,
Township.
all of theirs. You
Right.
got people that live on the north end, you got people, I mean, there's a lot of people that are involved and affected by this, but nobody ever brought them to the table, even like with the farmers, they haven't been brought to the table. And,
Some have, but
well, it depends on who you are, but, you know, if you're the guy out there that's riding the tractor, you might have a different opinion, or the small guy, the small farmer, whatever. I don't know, but I just think it's well worth your time to sit down and take a listen, because, you know, the public's speaking, and it's important that we all hear that. And that's been the only opportunity that I'm aware of where they've come forward and voice their thoughts. And so, and they, you know, they were instructed that they could ask questions, but they didn't want input or opinions. And that isn't how you do business, you know, and maybe there's a time and a place for that, but they haven't been given that time and place up until now. And so they did give opinions. And again, that's extremely important. And I think we can learn a lot from them as well.
Okay, I'm signing documents. Anything else? Hearing none, I would take a motion, Commissioner Ross.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Ross. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach.
others may die for lack of a second.
Yeah, we thought we were gonna be here all night. Thank you, Commissioner Peach. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.